Okay. Wow. That just really hit me. Like, really hit me as far as the antibodies. I mean, I already knew about antibodies and I talk about them all the time. But again, like the whole thing with Wayfair and Amazon and all of those different child trafficking stuff, you know, allegedly, I'm telling you, antibodies, antibody, antibodies. It's antibody. You're not supposed to be hoarding the antibodies. Why there's cancer, disease, and chronic illness is because your body is continuously trying to adapt to the environment because of all the antibodies that are in your body that you can't seem to get rid of. Why can't you get rid of it? Because you have a stagnated immune system. When you are gaining weight or you're not gaining weight at all, you're so underweight, it's because your body is not able to handle the environment. And those antibodies are destroying you over time. Well, you're supposed to have antibodies, Jillian, because it's supposed to give you protection. Well, what kind of protection are you looking for? Protection to people is not feeling pain. It's not feeling inflammation. However, the inflammation and the antibodies that do build up that are fast does give people supposed to give a body that can handle that type of adaptation. It's supposed to build up very fast and then leave very quickly. It's not supposed to stay in your body indefinitely. And that's why the blood types are what they are. That's why blood type A, which is surface marker antigen A, blood type B, surface marker antigen B, are basically antibodies that have agglutinated and they have marked your blood. It's an imprint. You can change your blood type. The optimal blood type is type O, O negative. What's the Rh factor? That's the rhesus monkey gene, and that has to do with how many antibodies that have to do with the rhesus monkey gene that comes up positive on a titer test. Okay? And so antibodies is what causes people that expiration date. And then when the medical holistic industry then subscribe or prescribe you antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, microbials and anti-parasites, it causes more antibodies in the body to cause more degradation. Cannabis is antibiotic. Okay? And so you have to, I mean, here's the thing. That's why I say that if you're doing antibiotics for whatever reason, whether it's cannabis, chemotherapy, prescription drugs, whatever, okay, do the J juice because that's going to give you back the life that those antibiotics are taking away. You've got to be able to flush out the excess antibodies because those antibiotics are really not helping you. It's a placebo thing. That's what antibiotics are. They're a placebo when it comes to the Jilly Juice world because life is going to overtake death if you do more life than the death protocols. And cannabis and antibiotics are death protocols. All the supplements and pills and powders and detoxes are the death protocols. And they create antibodies that people are not sweeping away. And that's why people die from cancer, disease, chronic illness, heart attacks, strokes, what else? Fluid in the lungs. That's why the COVID is killing people because they're not sweeping out the excess antibodies that they're accumulating because of their exposure to the new virus in the environment. And they're taking things like hydrochloroquine and other types of antivirals. Well, what are antivirals? They actually try to kill the virus, right? No, but you're killing the host because a virus needs a host. And so even though vaccines are great for people on the Jilly Juice, those not on the Jilly Juice, when they actually finally devise a vaccine that has an antibody that binds to the virus, which is bound to you, which is the host, now you know you're in trouble. Okay? So theoretically, the vaccines are not bad on a body that's able to handle, but you wouldn't need a vaccine if your body's able to handle the environment. So no matter what, if you have to take a vaccine for whatever reason, you got to do the Jilly Juice at the same time. So those antibodies are not binding to the virus, which is then attached to you, which is the host. Okay? And so you've got to understand antibodies is what causes death in our society. The accumulation of antibodies is what causes death in our society. The reason why you have these symptoms is the body trying to evolve and you're not giving it what it needs. Eventually, you won't deal with these symptoms anymore once you finally allow your body to evolve and adapt to the new environment with the right nutrition. Not because you anesthetize it with cannabis and chemotherapy and other types of stuff, because you actually rebuilt and regenerated your cells at the micro level. So you're right. The vaccines, for those that are on the JJs, are going to destroy people. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And some people who are strong enough will handle that upgrade, and they won't necessarily be destroyed right off the bat. But you will see a gradual, progressive degradation of those humans. Even those that are not doing JJs, and obviously there's no vaccine, they contracted the COVID, they survived it, but guess what? 10 years have been taken off their life. Their telomeres are shortening. Oh, because you survived the COVID this time around doesn't mean that you're going to survive the next go round. And maybe you will. And then you start seeing people age faster in our society. They're not doing the J juice. Okay? So, watching someone who's relatively strong in our society, like the Midwestern guys that hunt and shoot and fish and are built like brick shit houses that have so much barrel chested and strong and or they're 10 feet tall and they have so many minerals in their body and so much stuff. Yeah, they have predispositions, but just because they survived the COVID and survived the antibodies from the COVID doesn't mean that they're actually going to survive a long time. They have years taken off their life from that exposure because they're not releasing the excess antibodies. That's why you're seeing the dad bods out there. Dad bods is basically antibody accumulation stuck in their microbiome in their shit. That's why I say you want to release the excess imprints, the old microbiomes from years past. You got to do the Jilly juice and release the excess. And then once you finally get past that poop plug, you are now redistributing or reseeding your microbiome with the right gut bacteria, with the nutrition, because that's what the probiotics are. You have the cabbage and the kale nutrition. You have the salt, which is the energizing force. You have the water, and then you have water, and then you have the food supply. So after I basically swept out the microbiome from this weekend of drinking and smoking, I then replenished it, of course, with the Jilly juice, but then also with my food supply here, and there's no alcohol and no cigarettes. Yes, I do have secondhand smoke when my husband's here, but that's not a big deal. It's just my environment. I'm adapting to my environment. And then I ate some food to then reseed and repopulate my gut to be able to handle my environment. And I swept away any excess antibodies that I may have accumulated over the weekend because, yes, even being exposed to people who are asymptomatic, they may have data and viruses that I'm not aware of, and your body does create antibodies, but then the J juice helps sweep away the excess. Well, what do you mean by sweep away the excess? Well, when you get a titer test and you test positive, there's a specific algorithm in these tests that says, okay, test positive if you have 10 antibodies, just for example. But if you have 9 antibodies, you'll test negative. If you have 10 antibodies, you'll test positive. I mean, that's an example. That's not exactly what the rule is, but there is a specific algorithm with these titer tests to let you know when someone has test positive for specific things. And the meanings of these tests, when you test positive, like HIV, it means that you're closer to AIDS, which is the agglutination of the AIDS virus, which then causes degradation if you don't get a hold of it. But testing positive for, like on a titer test, when you want to show protection, is a good thing for the government. It shows that you have protection. You've been exposed to this virus and you survived it. So there's many ways to read a test and draw meaning from it. Doesn't mean it's still good for you, because really, when they do make vaccines mandatory, that's better than having them prick you for a titer test, because you could be doing the J juice. You could get a vaccine to the J juice. And if you throw away your proof that you got the vaccine and they do a titer test and you're on the J juice, you're not going to show any antibodies because you've already swept those antibodies out with the J juice. So that's why if there is mandatory vaccines, keep your paperwork. So that way you don't have to get a titer test or a blood test to show proof that you have the antibodies, because I'm telling you, the J juice will sweep away those excess antibodies that will show proof to the government. Okay, so understand that if this happens, that's going to be your get out of jail free card, so you can still survive the vaccines, but you don't have to keep getting vaccinated because your antibodies keep getting swept away from the J juice. You'll still have enough antibodies to give you, because antibodies are just part of your microbiome, but too many, just like anything, too much minerals, too many heavy metals, too many parasites, too many virus data, too many parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, bacteria, too many anomalous proteins, too much fungus, too much bacteria, too much lactic acid, which is from the lactobacillus, will all cause imbalances. And so does too many antibodies. And that's where death comes from, is too many antibodies accumulating, causing then clogging up your arteries and capillaries to where you don't survive strokes and heart attacks and aneurysms. And it also creates so much mucus that when you have bronchitis that you drown in your own fluids, okay? So that's why doing the J juice is paramount, and that's why you can survive the vaccines. Yes, vaccines are going to be horrible for those that already have predispositions, that don't know J juice, that's afraid of J juice. Yes, they will be. And whatever, you can't do anything about it. It'll help some acclimate to the new environment, but others are going to have adverse reactions. And that's just going to be inevitable because they're not bringing in the right chemistry to help them adapt to the new environment and to sleep away the excess antibodies. Antibodies is what kills people. Antibody, antibody. It's anti-life. Cannabis is antibiotic, anti-life. Antivirals is anti-host, anti-life, anti-you. Okay, I cannot express that enough. That's why those of you that are purveyors in the antibiotics, like the cannabis and all the different pills, powder, supplements, you are the purveyors of death. And I'm sorry, but that is the truth. And there's money in it. Okay? There is no money in Jilly juice. There really isn't. It's just a book of 98 pages of a very simplified version of what I'm talking about in all these different videos. My next book, I'm going to go into great detail, but not enough to make it glaze you over, but it's going to give you the long of the short of this. Because, you know, I do, like, what is one of the chapters in here? About antibodies? Aging, reproduction, and death. To die, what to expect with, okay. What is balancing life? But aging, reproduction, and death. I mean, that is showing you what is causing death. Let me see. Is there a page 17? Antibiotics is anti-life. Okay? I mean, when you inhibit life on the micro level, you inhibit life at the macro level, triggering reproduction and then death. Weakness addressed incorrectly triggers cancer, disease, and chronic illnesses. The methodologies used in the allopathic holistic will create more weaknesses and imbalances that viruses, bacteria take advantage of. The allopathic holistic would love to try to control all life forms at the micro level, and it's about inhibiting cell replication. Okay? And so, and I do go into this, and I do say that honeys and pills, powders, supplements, and detox heavy metals, colloidal silver, garlic, all types of spices used with the intention of antibiotic or anti-inflammatory for pain, heavy metal detox, you know, Ciprode, all that stuff, are some examples of prescription, are some examples of natural antibiotics. So when you are taking a natural synthetic antibiotic, you are inhibiting cell replication of all life forms, of all forms of life in your body, which is you. Immune suppression through surgical procedures, all types of therapies, and the above-mentioned antibiotics and anti-inflammatories are one of the biggest mistakes of the holistic allopathic industry when it comes to triggering indefinite life. They are not triggering indefinite life. Okay? And so it's like, so this kind of scratches the surface on why people are dying in our society. They don't die from salt. They don't die from probiotics unless it's just straight probiotics and only lactic acid, which, yes, an imbalance in your lactic acid is going to cause death. Lactic acidosis. That's why the salt is the balancing force. That's why the water is the balancing force. That's why the nutrition is the balancing force. Okay? But I do scratch the surface on what is life and what is death, the two absolutes. And then you do the J juice, and then you deal with the pain, and then you will see changes in your microbiome and then in your outlook and in your body, mind, and spirit. But antibodies, the accumulation, the vaccine industry that's not coupled with J juice, for those that are relatively weak, will have a hard time adapting to this new environment. And yes, you're going to see an uptick of new exotic diseases and new blood types. Surface marker antigen are imprints. When they have these antibodies binding to the virus, which is bound to you, the host, because viruses need a host, you are going to see epigenetic imprints. Okay, but it relieves people of the symptoms, so that way they're not constantly upgrading and dealing with pain. And that's why the medical holistic industry create these vaccines, so people then can, slow down their upgrade process, which does keep you stagnant in your current thought process, which is why people are not evolving. Okay? But people don't want to feel pain. So that's the whole point of the vaccine industry, and that's the whole point of the prescription drugs and the antibiotics. People don't want to feel pain. They don't want to evolve. And then some of you guys know this about your friends and family, and you're selling them pills, powder supplements, and cannabises and all that stuff. And I'm ashamed of that, but what am I going to do? Y'all got to make a buck. I get it. And if your friends are all about the shortcuts, then I guess your friends are ripe for every kind of manipulation. But I don't stand for that, so I won't make money off of people's ignorance. You got to face the pain. You got to face the demons. All right, bye.